So this is the sternum bone. It's divided into 3 different parts. We got the manubrium, body of the sternum, and the xiphoid process. On the manubrium, we got the jugular notch, which is right here. That's where the jugular artery goes through. And then right here on the sides, we got the clavicle notches, and that's where the clavicle sits. Then on the body of the sternum, we got the costal cartilage notches, and that's where the cartilage connects to the body, and along with the cartilage, the ribs as well. On the bottom part, this little pointy part, is the xiphoid process, and that is all for the sternum. And then for the so this is the sternum and the clavicle bones. The clavicles are up here on the top. It's a bit hard to tell between right and left, but the easiest way is to find the acromion and the sternum end. The acromion end is the flat end of the sternum, while the sternal end is the thick part. And so to find out which is left or right, you put the sternum end in the medial towards the middle, and the acromion far away from the middle or lateral. So with the acromion end connects to the sternum at the clavicle notch, which is right up here. The sternum is divided into 3 different parts: the manubrium, body of the sternum, and the xiphoid process. On the manubrium, we got the jugular notch, which is right here, and that's where the jugular artery passes through. On both sides of the manubrium, we got the clavicle notches, and like I said, that is where the clavicle goes to. Beneath the manubrium is the body of the sternum, and on the body of the sternum, we got the costal cartilage notches, where the cartilage connects to the sternum and where the ribs as well connect to. Then at the tip of the sternum bone, we got the xiphoid process, which is this very tip right here. Hard to see, but it's right there. So right here, we have our beautiful scapula, our shoulder blade, also known as that. We have the posterior side right here, and on the posterior side, we got the infraspinatus fossa, this whole little section right here. We have the inferior angle as well right here. We got the spine of the scapula right here, this little thing right here, followed by the supraspinosa fossa, this part right here above the spine. Then we got the acromion right here, if I pronounced that right. And then right here is our glenoid fossa. I forgot about the name for a while, but glenoid fossa right here. That's where our clavicle connects to. And then on this side, on the anterior side, we got the subscapular fossa right here. This whole little section right here. Superior border is right here. We got the clavicle process right here. This little part of the bone right here. Clavicle process. We got the medial border right here, because it faces to the middle of the body, medial border. And then we got our lateral border right here, which is faces away from the middle of the body. So lateral border right here. Then right here is our superior angle. And I think that's about it. And then right here is our inferior angle. So to tell between a left and a right side of the clavicle, left and right, the spine is posterior, so the spine has to be facing the back. So towards up this way, this would be the back. And the glenoid cavity is superior and lateral, so superior up and facing outside. That's how you tell between a left and a right. So this would be our left, because spine is posterior, and our glenoid cavity is up and facing out. And this would be our right. Okay, so right here we have a single rib, and for the rib, the parts are a bit flipped. The head of the rib will actually be going to the back, and The flat end is going to go to the front, which is going to go and connect to the costal cartilage notches on the sternum. On the back over here, we have the head of the rib right here. Then we have the neck about right there. We have the tubercle of the rib right here, followed by this whole thing is the shaft, and then underneath right here is gonna be the costal groove. And the head of the ribs faces the back, so it should be faced like this. So this is technically on the right side of the body. That's how you tell sort of right and left. All right, so right here we have ribs again. We're going to just find the true, false, and floating ribs. So the true ribs, or the vertebral sternum, are the first 7. So right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These 7 here are your true ribs or vertebral sternum. Underneath the vertebral sternum, we have 3 false ribs or 3 vertebral chondral, which are 1, 2, 3 right here. And they're not false ribs because they don't directly connect to the sternum like the true ribs. They're all connected to the 7th cartilage. And then in the back right here, we have our 2 floating ribs or the 2 vertebral ribs, as they're only connected to the spine, nowhere else.
So right here we have the humerus, the left humerus. So right here we have the proximal head. We have the anatomical neck of the humerus and the surgical neck. Then on the side of it, we have the deltoid tuberosity. The trochlear straight down here on this notch right here. And then inside this little gap right here, we have the olecranion fossa. We have the medial and lateral epicondyles as well. Now on the other side of the humerus, we have the greater tubercle. We have the lesser tubercle, and also right here on the side we have the inner tubercle groove. For the bottom of the humerus, we have the capitellum. We have the carotid fossa and also the radial fossa. On the radius, we have the proximal head. We have the neck of the radius. We have the radial tuberosity. We have the ulnar notch right here on the side, and we also have the styloid process right here. For the ulna, we have the olecranion process on top. We have the carotid process, and we have the trochlear notch right here. On the side of it, we also have the radial notch. And on the bottom, we also have what is called the styloid process, which is this little bump right here. So right here we have the left hand. We'll start off with the carpals. So the first carpal of the bones we have here is the scaphoid. We have the lunate, tricuterol. We have the pisiform. We have the trapezium, the trapezoid, the capitate, and the hamate. Then we have the metacarpals. We have metacarpal 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In the phalanges, on the thumb, we only have the proximal and the distal. But for the other remaining 4, we have a proximal, a middle, and a distal. Every single one all has a proximal, middle, and distal except the thumb.
Okay, here we have the pelvic girdle, also known as the coxa. The femur goes into the acetabulum. This is the pubic symphysis, we have the hyaline cartilage joint that connects the two. Then this is the obturator foramen. This top portion is the ilium. This inner area is the pubis, and the posterior area over here is the ischium. In the ilium, we have the iliac fossa. Posterior to the iliac fossa, we have the gluteal surface, which is this portion. Superior to the iliac fossa is the iliac crest. The anterior superior iliac spine is this. So then the anterior inferior iliac spine is here. The posterior superior iliac spine is this area. The posterior inferior iliac spine is this area, which makes this the greater sciatic notch, where the sciatic nerve goes through. And then we flip it back over. This portion is the auricular surface. And then we go to the ischial spine. Then the lesser sciatic notch. Just kidding. The ischial tuberosity is this. This is the ischial tuberosity. And then the pubic tubercle is the pubic tubercle is this. The superior pubic ramus is this area. So this is the superior pubic ramus. The inferior pubic ramus is this area. And the way to tell right from left is the auricular surface is anterior and medial, and the iliac fossa is anterior on the ilium. Okay, so here we have two femurs. This is the fovea capitis. It's this dent in the head of the femur, and this is the neck of the femur. Here we have the greater trochanter and the lesser trochanter. This is the gluteal tuberosity, and beneath that is the linea aspera.
And then this is the left femur. On the posterior side, we have the medial condyle. And on the opposite side, we're going to have the lateral condyle. And then if we flip it around on the sides, we'll have the medial epicondyle. And on the opposite side is the lateral epicondyle. And then on the posterior side, this big hole is called the intercondylar fossa. And then she already went over the posterior side, which is also the gluteal tuberosity. And then on the back side is also the intertrochanteric crest. And then the way we can tell the difference of the left and right femur is that the head is pointed medially and the condyles are posterior. These are the condyles, they're posterior, and the patella surface is anterior. So here we're looking at the anterior view of the right and left patella. Each patella is going to have a flat base on top and a pointy apex on the bottom. If we turn over the patella, each one's going to have a slight divot known as the medial facet towards the midline of the body, and on the opposite side is going to be the lateral facets. These facets are going to articulate with the condyles of the femur, so the medial facet is going to articulate with the medial condyle and the lateral with the lateral condyle. In order to tell the difference between the left and right patella, as we're going to see that the apex is inferior, and then if we face the apex away from our perspective, flat on the ground, and we look at them from the side, we can see that the right patella is going to lean on the right side, and the left one is going to lean on the left side. So here we're looking at the anterior surface of the right tibia. To begin off, we're going to look at the medial condyle, which is on the top right of the bone. On the opposite side is going to be the lateral condyle. If we pick up the bone, we can see this ridge or bump at the top known as the intercondylar eminence. If we set the bone down, we can have a better look at another bump known as the tibial tuberosity, which is that right there. Towards the bottom, we're going to see a bone poking out known as the medial malleolus. And on the opposite side is the fibular notch, which is going to attach with the fibula. Now we're going to look at the articular surfaces of the tibia. First is the articular surface of the medial condyle that attaches with the femur, and the lateral condyle that also attaches with the femur. On the bottom of the tibia, we're going to see the inferior articular surface of the tibia. This part is going to connect with the talus of the foot. In order to tell the difference between right and left of the tibia is to basically look at the medial malleolus, which is always going to be medial, and the tibial tuberosity is always going to be anterior. And that's basically it. So here we're looking at the right fibula. This is the anterior view. At the top, superior is going to be the head of the fibula. At the bottom is going to be the lateral malleolus. Next, we're going to be looking at the articular surfaces of the fibula. To begin off, we're going to have the proximal tibiofibular joint, which is going to connect with the tibia at the top. And if you bring the tibia side by side, you can see where they articulate with each other. So that's the proximal tibiofibular joint. At the bottom is going to be the distal tibiofibular joint. Moving the tibia aside, we're going to look at the fibula and look at ways on how to tell which is the top and which is the bottom. So the inferior end is going to have a much deeper hole compared to the superior side, which is going to have a more shallow but pointier edge. So here we're looking at the superior view of the right foot. We're first going to look at the tarsals, beginning off with the talus, which is this bone on the bottom left corner of the screen. To the right of it is going to be the calcaneus, and then on top of the talus is the navicular. And then the next row on top, moving from left to right, is going to be the medial cuneiform. And then to the right of that is going to be the intermediate cuneiform, then the lateral cuneiform, and finally the cuboid. Those bones are going to make up the tarsals. Above that are going to be the metatarsals. Moving from left to right is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And each one is going to have a base and a head, 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 and finally a base and a head. Those are going to make the metatarsals. On top of those are going to be the phalanges, moving from 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So moving from left to right are going to be phalanges. They all have a proximal, middle, and distal, except for the phalange 1, which is just going to have a hallux because there's only 2 bones there. So the big toe is going to be referred to as a hallux, and then this is going to be the proximal, middle, distal of bone 2, proximal, middle, and distal of phalange 3, proximal, middle, distal of phalange 4, and proximal, middle, and distal of phalange 5. In order to tell the difference between left to right, we're going to see that the talus is medial and superior, and then that the calcaneus is inferior and lateral.